The views and opinions expressed on this show are those of its host and owners and in no way represent the views of the people, institutions, or organizations that Scenic City Sports is involved with in a professional or personal capacity. Thanks for watching and enjoy the show.
And welcome to our second live show, Scenic City Sports Tonight. Sorry we couldn't be with you over this past weekend like we had planned, but we had stuff that was going on. I was out of town, Rusty was out of town, You were.
I was present and ready.
You were in town for the first
I was
time.
present and ready, but
That's usually.
I didn't know Rusty had an excuse. I knew you were involved in some form of sports out of town. But
we had 2 Vintage League baseball games up at the Hermitage.
Y'all keep score?
Yeah.
Oh, y'all do.
Yeah. I wish we hadn't. This past week.
I wish we hadn't.
It did not go well. Let's just put it at that.
Well, y'all didn't draft well. That goes back to the original.
Did not go well. The second game went a whole lot better than the first game. We still lost twice, but the we'll just as a famous person once said, we're on to May 21st.
Well, in your sport of activity from late spring into most of the summer is just cranking up. Most of the spring sports are starting to wind down in the North Georgia and the Chattanooga area. Any surprises for you this year, Scott, in certain areas, in certain sports?
No, I will say, and I shouldn't say I'm too surprised because they did make a run to the Final Four last year, but they had lost a couple of key players and they had switched a bunch of players around. But the Heritage girls today won in the second round of the state tennis tournament, 3-1 down in Savannah. The boys had a tight back and forth match with Benedictine on those same courts.
Benedictine.
Benedictine Military School, and they said there was probably about 50 or 60 students there from Benedictine just going nuts on every point. So,
Saint Benedictine, isn't it? Don't they go by Saint?
They just go. Oh. They just go by Benedictine.
All right.
Benedictine Military School, all boys military school down in Savannah,
so the Heritage tennis did better this year than you anticipated.
A little bit better than I anticipated, considering some of the players that were playing 2s and 3s were moving up and playing 1s and stuff. But they're still going on. They got to go down to Marist for the next. Now, if they beat Marist, there's your surprise.
How many times can we say count on one foot, one leg that the teams in this area eventually had to second round somewhere in there move past a Marist in life and
a lot. Yeah. Now we're not going to say it after next year, at least for the next 2 years, because they're moving all those private schools up in classification. So I think they'll be Class 6A,
okay.
And then Dalton's even dropping back. So Rome might be the only one that might have to deal with them down the road. But I counted up today. Marist is the defending champion in girls tennis, and they've won 26 state titles. So
the Heritage
their history.
Well, I mean,
I'm throwing my voice over here.
well, and the head football coach at Marist,
Alan Chadwick.
I mean, I don't know why I keep forgetting his name from time to time. As good a winning percentage that's out there.
Goodness gracious.
You know what's odd about his situation? Not as many state championships as you would envision him to have, but
Marist has a
900 winning percentage.
Marist has a AA enrollment, maybe AAA, and they've always played up 2 classifications because of the competition. So I mean, they may not have the greatest of
played a lot of state championships, doesn't come away with as many of them as you think.
Yeah,
but his
they
winning
run into some good
percentage,
teams.
Scott, I think is right at 900.
I'm going to pull this up because it's something ridiculous.
It is. And I mean, and there was times several years ago that Marist and Tucker would run into each other, and Tucker would be very, very onslaughted in talent per se, but then lots of times those Marist teams still would win football games. A lot like, I think they're a lot like the Maryvilles of our area up in here, because many times I've watched those Maryville teams not being in awe of their athleticism, but watching them go out there like a machine and win a football game by 3, 4, 5, 6 touchdowns.
Oh yeah, they have no fear.
I mean, that's how you'll watch a game that you'll see them play, but yet you won't always say, those kids are not necessarily any more athletic than I've seen somewhere else. But coaching's been big at Marist.
Yeah, well, I was about to say. I mean, you're still getting back into that whole mentality of which is now it's the difference in, say, McCallie and Baylor up here versus all the public schools. take a school like Central. Central's got a head coach, maybe an offensive and defensive coordinator, 2 or 3 guys that volunteer their time to come out and help the program, and that's it. McCallie and Baylor and schools like Marist in Georgia have how many coaches on the staff?
Yeah,
25.
I can't remember
all paid positions.
I can't remember.
Well, Lipscomb Academy's got like 26.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember the exact number that was spit out last fall by the Times Free Press, but that Scott, it's been X number of years, and those years are pretty lengthy in time, that a McCallie or Baylor has lost to any Chattanooga public school. And it was a long venture of time. Wasn't it 15 years or something like that?
Did Boyd not beat Baylor one year? Or they played them super close?
Well, I know.
I think
they did play them. I'm real sure they played them close. I'm not sure if they beat them. But even if they did beat them, Scott, that would have been a long, long time ago. As far as
I remember the year that the closest I remember to.
I was thinking it was like 30 to 25. I think Baylor might have won the game, but I know it was
Boyd
almost
beat Baylor in.
That'd be going back to Robert Akins'
Drew's.
days.
It was Drew Akins' junior or senior year.
And I think Courtney was on Baylor.
Courtney was on that Baylor
Yeah.
team, and I think, if I remember correctly, it was like a freshman wide receiver from Baylor caught one on the sidelines with time expiring and took it to the house, and Baylor won by like a score.
I think the game was extremely close, but I remember as Boyd was getting really, really good over there in those latter years and play for those state championships. Coach Akins would play a Red Bank or a Baylor just to simulate what he might run into eventually in round 3 or 4.
Well, and then they had that one stretch where after they won a state championship, they couldn't get anybody to play them.
Well,
Scott and I saw him we saw Robert at a basketball game. I think we went to Boyd Buchanan and I want to say Tennessee Temple or somebody like that was playing that night, and we saw Coach Aiken, and that was the year they had to schedule like 5A Cookeville.
Yes.
And they scheduled the Fulton Falcons, who was the defending 2A state 3A state champion.
And Coach Turner, when he was at Tyner, would tell you the same thing. I remember many times he says I'm still having to schedule as if we were in that 1999 state championship year.
Yep. Well, fair or not, Ridgeland went through that. Especially these last couple of years.
Yeah, Ridgeland was paying for it.
Yeah,
these last few years when they were having to schedule Calhouns and Rabun counties and Daltons and everybody, because nobody else would play. August 27th, 2021, which is about the second game of last season, Alan Chadwick became the 36th high school football coach to enter the 400-win club. His lifetime record, now this was not counting the rest of the season, but up until August 27th of this past season, 400 wins, 73 losses.
I've seen it several times through the years, his
Yeah.
winning percentage, and it was just one of those you thought, wow. But again, just 1 or 2 state championships, I think.
I think he's only got 3.
3, okay, just not as many.
I think he's only got 3.
That winning percentage might make you.
Well, for a long time, Marist was, for lack of better terminology, that was where football seasons went to die. If you looked at your draw and you saw that there was a chance that you were going to wind up with them in any stage of the playoffs, you knew, that's probably where we're going out right there.
It's about an 85% winning percentage.
85%.
Which is, so
close to that 900.
Yeah, give credit to that 2012 Ridgeland team.
Yeah.
They did something that not a whole lot of people
they went there and beat them, didn't they?
No, it was at Ridgeland.
And again, we've thrown off about how good that Ridgeland team was, and we've thrown off how good that last John Allen's Lakeview team there. I think that would really have been a fun matchup to watch them play. But the difference in those two, Scott, and let's be honest with the situation, Ridgeland got to stay home with some luck that took place in those coin tosses.
They won.
They got to stay home, and then
they won 2 crucial coin tosses.
Lakeview went on the road, and that had to be the difference in where one went to I think when one went to championship game, and maybe one fell slightly short of it. You put those Lakeview back at home instead of running on the road, things could have easily been
And if
different.
I'm not mistaken, LFO had to go to Marist in 2003, and I was at that ball game.
They
and
did.
who was the quarterback for Marist?
That's right. The LA Rams.
Sean McVay.
Sean McVay.
Just had a conversation with a player that played on that Lakeview team back in that day, and I put that to his quiz, and he didn't know that.
I know the thing was going around social media about, can you believe that Sean McVay was voted the Georgia Player of the Year over Calvin Johnson that year? And I'm like, yeah. And it was some national thing. I was like, you probably didn't see Sean McVay play when he was in high school.
Well, and if I'm not mistaken, this former
God, he was-
player,
Was that their last state championship?
They might have won one since then. But yeah, I think they did win it that year.
They won it.
I think they won
Yeah,
it.
they
that
won
year.
it that
and
year,
Ringo
but-
was down there that same year in a similar area playing Tucker, a very loaded Tucker team.
Yeah.
That the game really wasn't all that close.
Was
but
Thomas Brown that played in Georgia? Wasn't he on the team?
he was
running
on the
back?
team, but with a broken leg.
That's right.
Did not play.
That's right.
His backup, don't remember the young man's name, had already committed to South Carolina.
Yeah.
So
Embarrassment of riches.
The Georgia commit who's got a broken leg don't play. So let's play the South.
I mean, your
Carolina.
Georgia guy doesn't get to commit. You know, he can play. So let's just bring the South Carolina guy in. It'll be all right. It'll be fine.
I think they had, Scott, somewhere in the neighborhood of 8 to 12 commits already on that Tucker team. Now, not all in SEC
Well, I mean,
play.
that's
but
that Sandy Creek team that
different
Ridgeland
level.
played. I mean, good Lord, I remember y'all. The one thing that I remember was all y'all coming back and saying, that's the best Ridgeland team we've seen ever, and only 2 players on that Ridgeland team probably could have broke the starting lineup of that Sandy Creek team.
Yeah,
I mean,
And one of them's in the NFL right now.
Just a few. I mean,
and it's
really,
no knock on Ridgeland.
No, it is
no
not.
disrespect.
It is
That's
not.
how good that team was.
It was a very good team.
We
Good
came
team was
through on our way home. Chrissy and I went flower shopping a couple of weeks ago. Obviously, if that don't tell you that I'm domesticated, I don't know what will. But we
I
went.
got that text the other day. I'm like, you're
Yeah.
where?
We
now,
went
flowers or vegetables.
Oh no, flowers.
Flowers.
We were
Let's be-
flowers. If
you weren't actually out there looking for edibles to eat.
If you're around my house anytime soon, make sure that you look at the flower beds out front because they're beautiful. But on the way back, we passed. Was South DeKalb or is it South DeKalb? I guess
Southwest DeKalb.
Southwest DeKalb. We passed Southwest DeKalb.
known for basketball.
I
right?
just
So-
known for football,
yeah,
too.
I pointed to that school and told her, I was like, yeah, there's
Quincy Carter.
pretty good. Yeah, I said pretty good athletes went through that place.
One of the best state finals I ever saw. I watched it on TV when I was in college. Valdosta versus Southwest DeKalb in the. Where was that game? It might have been at Valdosta because I think they played the championship games, and it came back and forth. And I think the winning touchdown came with like final 4 seconds or something like that. 40-37. Great game. Speaking of Ridge, I want to get this out before I completely forget. And I put it on. I know I put it on my Facebook page. I can't remember if we put it on Scenic City Sports or not. So this past week, Logan Montgomery,
I saw that,
senior,
Scott.
who's already committed, signed with the University of Florida. He's going to be on the track team. Last year, Logan won Ridgeland's first 2 state titles. He won the discus and shot put. So at the region meet at Southeast Whitfield the other day, he threw the shot put 65 feet 2 inches. 65 feet 2 inches.
I once threw it 65 feet 3 inches.
The pit.
Was there any official GHSA?
So here's the thing: the
Nobody.
pit runs out at about 55.
Oh,
So he won the match. Matter of fact, the kid that finished second, the kid from Cedartown, one of the guys that works for the Cedartown paper, writes for him, told me, he said, "Yeah, I knew that game was the real deal because the Patrick Gardner hadn't been beaten all year, and he lost by 14 feet.
Good Lord.
Gardner threw like 51, which would have won by about 10, and then Logan comes along. Now get this." He had another throw of 64-11. He had another one of 63. In his last throw, he fouled. He stepped out of the circle, so it didn't count.
Right.
But they measured it anyway, just to see. It was 67-5 or something like that.
Imagine being
Which would have been the longest throw in the nation
Yeah.
this year. So Sunday, he goes down to an AAU meet with the club team that he throws for down there. 66-11.
So that was thrown in a club meet, not in.
But they think it's going to count. They're going to submit it anyway because it was still technically a high school meet.
Well, and not.
But that is going to be the longest.
Yeah, but imagine
it's going to be the longest throw in the nation, not just
this
the
year.
state, in the nation so far this year.
Imagine you're that Gardner kid though, thinking that going out there like knowing you're a stud. And you get beat by 15 feet.
Well, I was down there the next day.
It's one thing to be beat by 15 inches. I mean, that's more, you're like, oh,
Yeah.
well, I mean,
you expect that.
I give it all I had, and the guy beat me by 15 inches. And then you tell somebody, give it all I had, and I got beat by 15 feet. I'm sorry, what?
That's like winning the 3,200 by like 2 laps.
Yeah, I mean, that's just...
Well, then he goes down there the next day in the discus, and another kid from Cedartown threw at 134, which he would have won by 14 feet. And Logan got up there and went 171. And that's not close to his longest. His longest this year is like 183.
Golly. Well, okay,
So-
obviously you talking track, region is going on right now. And,
Yep. I'm headed down there tomorrow. Matter of fact, Gordon
Yeah.
Lee's got a track meet at
Do we have
10.
a dominant team in the area in track, or do we just have individuals?
Last year, and the last couple years, the Gordon Lee girls have been very good, and they're still pretty good, but they lost 2 seniors last year that scored about 40 or 50 points combined between high jump and hurdles and pole vault and stuff. So it may be a little tougher on them to try to repeat what they've done, because I think they've won 2 in a row and probably would have won 3 if it hadn't COVID hadn't wiped it out. So we'll see how they end up doing. But as far as just dominant teams, not really.
Mm-hmm. I was up actually Saturday morning.
But we have some kids that are good in certain events.
My good buddy out of Nashville, Steve Wade, was bringing down his junior girl phenom who actually threw, Scott, the record is 155 in the discus. She threw 157 at a meet a few weeks ago, but there wasn't a TSSAA official on site, so they couldn't count it.
Is this the girl we interviewed from
Yes, I was gonna say,
she's
yeah.
going to Ole Miss on a throwing scholarship, and the shots are better of the 2, I think. But they had a big track meet out at McCauley. A lot of teams local, but a lot of out of town teams, and she won those 2 events here as well. Did not set the record that she thought she was. The record she would have broke it, but it was out of bounds.
Well, the middle school meet in Northwest Georgia started today. And I say Northwest Georgia, I'm talking the North Georgia Athletic Conference, which is Lakeview and Ringgold and Heritage and Rossville, Chattanooga Valley. No, not anybody south of Tryon. But there's like a 10 school conference. And the 2 kids that are doing shot put right now, the girl, Lainey Wilson, from Gordon Lee, the other day at a meet, she threw it 97.9, and she's still just in 7th grade.
That's pretty good.
And she's winning by like 30 feet, something like that.
97 feet for a middle schooler. That's
and let me put that
97 feet for a middle school boy is a long way.
Well, and let
the
me
fact that it's a girl throwing 97.
Well, let me put that in retrospect, Scott. I watched probably 8-9 girls at least at that meet in high school not throw it that far.
Yeah, and I was going to say there's a kid, young man from Heritage named Lucas Redwine. He won at Lakeview the other night with a throw of 124 feet. And had he been in the Heritage Region High School Region meet the other day, he would have finished 3rd. And he's, I think, in 8th grade. So we're the throwing events around here. Disciplines are really taking off. Not just at Ridgeland, but at other schools too. It seemed to have become, all of a sudden around here, we're becoming a area of discus and shot put throwing.
Well, the one thing I noticed at that track meet the other day, and again, a lot of kids that play football, some do play baseball and other sports, but you see a lot of them involved in their track programs, and you recognize some really good looking athletes that were out there the other day for all different schools around the area, even as far up as Knoxville and Nashville as well. So it was a great day for a Saturday track meet and a good turnout.
Yeah.
I'm noticing really more across the board, not just the throwing sports like that. In the last few years, middle school athletics really in the area have gotten markedly better.
Oh yeah.
Not necessarily, not just the traditional sports either, like football or baseball or whatever. I mean, we've got some kids at the middle school level that are, there's some kids out there already, some golfers that are pretty good. We got some track kids that are pretty good. I mean, I don't know if we're just raising better athletes or if it's just the fact that, there's just so many more programs that they can come through on the way up than what we had. I mean, Scott and I and Rob, I mean, you're a little older than us, but I mean, literally when we were growing up, you had a rec league somewhere in town that you played everything at that rec league. If you played football, basketball, baseball, whatever. You played with the same guys that you always played with. You didn't travel. You played 6 or 8 or 9 seasonal games, and that was it.
Yeah, pretty much.
You traveled if you made All-Stars.
Yeah, and I mean, now these kids are playing travel teams by the time they're 5 and 6 and 7 years old, and they're spending weekends in Mississippi playing baseball, and there's kids going and traveling and wrestling, and there's kids going and traveling and playing golf, and there's kids, I mean, they're just so much more active and into things than we had available to us at that age that I think it's finally starting to show some results.
Well, they also it seems like they've learned from an earlier age what they're good at and what they like, and the parents are willing to travel to take them to train. I can't tell you how many kids I know personally that go to Atlanta for track, for volleyball, for golf lessons, to play baseball, softball, soccer. They're playing travel teams, all over the Southeast and stuff like that. And there's more opportunities now, and the parents are willing to put the money in because they know, hey, there could be a scholarship waiting at the end of this thing. I mean, Logan Montgomery is a perfect example. Here's a kid who, he wanted to go into marine biology. He's a great shot putter, and guess who's got one of the best marine biology programs in the country? University of Florida. And that was his goal, was to get there, and he knew he was going to have to go to Atlanta and put those miles in on the car and put the work in, and now it's paid off.
That would be an interesting thing to learn from a standpoint, because my son's 32, over 22, 23, 24 years ago, anytime we ventured out towards Atlanta to play ball, we knew that we better saddle up and be ready to play ball, because we were going to see so many formidable teams, and we always appreciated it. But nowadays, Scott, just to take a straw poll, how many parents do take their kids to Atlanta for other sports besides baseball? Because we know that's plentiful. Softball, you're talking about golf, we're talking about the track teams. I know that they've been down there for a long time.
And there's good travel sports and opportunities here in Chattanooga, but I'm just saying, I do know of those.
But how many,
but some sports, there's
how many
not
are going that way?
Yeah, and some sports, you're not going to find that in Chattanooga. There's good instruction down there. The parents are willing to put in the time, and like I said, I know kids that travel 2 times a week at least during school.
And I've got some familiarity on some kids that were on some throwing teams and track teams that would go down to the Atlanta area, because that's where those prominent coaches were, and you don't hear much about that, but in their sport they were sacrificing those hours and time and gas mileage down the road to be involved in that.
Well, I'm glad to see some of this, because the average Joe don't realize this, and really, if we're being honest, the only reason we realize this is because occasionally we get to have conversations with college coaches, and that is that there are a lot of scholarships out there in some of those what we used to refer to as auxiliary sports that go unused because some of those coaches can't even fill teams. And it's great to see now that some of the kids in the area have, I mean, as far back as I can remember, there were always going to be moms and dads who thought their kid could get a baseball or a softball scholarship. I mean, that in this area, that's as prevalent as anything. But now you're starting to see a whole lot more of the parents taking those girls to play that travel volleyball, taking girls and boys both for golf lessons, taking them. Some of these kids in the area are playing, around here, mainly we have it as a club sport, but we got kids around here playing lacrosse.
Yeah.
We got big-time soccer presence in the Chattanooga area, especially now that we have basically 2 professional teams, both that run their own youth academies.
And there's a bunch of good small college programs around Chattanooga, from Tennessee Wesleyan to Lee to Berry to even Dalton State has got excellent soccer programs. And it got to the point where you can still get a baseball scholarship, but it's probably not going to be a full ride. I don't know about softball, but I got a feeling it probably comes down to that at some point too. The scholarships that are out there are the volleyball ones, and they are the soccer ones, and they are the golf ones. But you've got to be some of the best to go to those bigger schools. So yeah, if they think they got a chance to grab one of those.
I learned something the other day. I was talking to somebody that was fairly educated about college baseball, and we were talking about the Tennessee program. We was talking about the possibilities of that Tennessee coach maybe landing somewhere else in the near future if somebody was dangling something. And I started asking questions, who could be that school out there that could lure him, and the first one I brought up was Texas, and then what this guy shared with me, he says that one may not be as appealing as you might think. And I said, well, tell me why. Because they got all the money in the world. Anybody that comes from out of state, there's a $56,000 out of state tuition. He says, what baseball team's giving everybody a free ride? So now we know there's plenty of talent inside the state of Texas, and yes, you could form that team, I guess, pretty formidably. But that did make some sense. Well, I can't go over here and recruit these kids because the out-of-state tuition doesn't get waived.
Texas A&M apparently was really hot after Coach Valletto in the offseason, and Tennessee ponied up and said nope. And now he's getting, I think, $1.5 million a year, which is one of the highest paid coaches.
I was going to say that's got to put him in the top 5 baseball-wise.
He's one of the highest paid coaches in the country, and for my money, worth every dadgum bit of it, because that team is for real, and they're having fun. And man, I think the worst part about coaching at Texas, and I don't even think it wouldn't even matter to me what the sport was. I think the worst part about coaching at Texas would just be the expectations are off the chart, and that fan base is so impatient. I mean, look how many football coaches that they've gone through in the last 10 or 12 years.
With the transfer portal now, it's even more pressure because you can put it back on the coach and say, you can be good faster than you ever thought you could be. You don't have to wait on that grooming that freshman class you were going to get in a few years.
And I heard somebody on the radio yesterday, they were talking about Texas and Oklahoma, how they're such big fish and kind of a smaller pond with the Big 12, and in a couple of years, guess what's going to happen? They're going to be a normal size fish in a great big pond with a bunch of other fish their size. They're talking about the collectives, basically. Putting the NIL deals together, and right now, they've got more money than anybody else in the conference. That's not going to be the same here in about 2 more years.
Well, and Scott, and that tells you that all the money that the University of Texas claimed that they had, they still didn't pass on the SEC, and they still came into this conference. So even though it was probably good, it was even going to be better.
I think the commissioner, Greg Sankey, I think he is such a visionary. I think he looked kind of into the future and saw this is where college sports is headed, with these NIL deals and everything else. And he said, what's the best way we can generate more revenue for television dollars, more money for the conference? We need to get another couple big programs in here to get a bigger piece of the TV pie. And
let's just bring a school that already has its own network with it.
Yeah,
and bring them in. I look at it
and get them to do away with it.
I look at it the same as you do in the respect of I'm seeing the Super Conference. That it wouldn't surprise me one iota that 15 to 18 years from now, if even that long, that they've added 5 or 6 more big time, big ticket schools. They're the Power 20, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
If you want to keep it the SEC, whatever. But you'll basically have the 15 to 20 most powerful football programs in America playing in the same conference, and they'll separate themselves from everything else, and the NCAA will run a completely different championship than what the Power 20 runs.
And with the SEC expanding, and even that, when we brought Missouri in, they thought, well, he's not in that. You've got a school like Nebraska that's lobbying to try to get back out of where they went to.
Yeah.
So I wonder if we could even see a Nebraska fall in line with the SEC. You
Absolutely.
say, well, that's not, because one, if you go back in time, what were some of the greatest rivalries? Oklahoma, Nebraska, and Texas and Nebraska.
Missouri, Nebraska,
they were tremendous
Arkansas.
rivalries.
I never
what about when
thought-
Arkansas was in the old Southwestern Conference?
Texas,
Arkansas, Texas. I never, and I still to this day, I don't think Missouri's a good fit for the.
For
the conference.
I
It
heard
just
that
doesn't.
but I heard what the
South Carolina, yes.
The
Missouri,
conference was wanted to be in that big metropolitan St. Louis market for not
I get
only
it.
recruiting purposes and all that, but you would think if Missouri steps up and they're who they're supposed to be, why should Alabama and Georgia be able to swoop into St. Louis and get their players? Well,
But what did Missouri bring to the table? Texas A&M, yes, I can see that.
yeah.
That fan base and Texas.
But you're bringing
and they wanted
Missouri in for reasons other than football. I mean, traditionally the basketball program's always been pretty good.
But they haven't been a powerhouse at anything. If anything, the one sport that they can say they're kind of a powerhouse in is wrestling.
Yeah.
And nobody in the SEC has wrestling.
That's true.
Missouri is still wrestling basically in the Big 10 or Big 12.
Well, and Scott,
I just thought,
I don't think
what are they bringing to the party?
You might say that they're not bringing much, but at the same time, they don't want to let go of what they're in.
No.
They're not going to trade out.
No.
If they have any say in it themselves.
No.
Even though they may not be the front runners, but when they did first come in, nobody thought from the SEC East standpoint they'd be winning it, and doggone if they weren't.
They won it twice in a row.
I was going to say, I mean, they came in ready to play.
I think we weren't prepared.
Of course,
for
that
them to
didn't
do
hurt that they had a good quarterback when they came in at that time.
Yeah.
I mean, they had some things that fell their way. There were a lot of extenuating circumstances at that time. Tennessee was on the way down.
There was some schools
Through all, there was a lot of stuff going on that sort of gave rise to that.
Traditionally speaking, if Florida, Georgia, and Tennessee are who they're supposed to be, there wouldn't be no Missouri winning the East.
Well, of course,
No.
the rumor is, the legend is, 30 years ago now, the SEC was pursuing Florida State and Miami.
Yeah,
and they tried to get them, and apparently the quote from Bobby Bowden was, "I want to pick my own stiffs," and that's why Florida State never became a part. Now, whether that's true or not, that's a story that's always been told. But that would have been a heck of a conference back then.
Yes.
Well,
Get
if
Florida
you
State, Missouri,
would-
but Florida wanted no part of that. They're like,
Right.
no.
Well, Florida's going
We're it.
to fight hard against that, just as
Same reason South Carolina is
South
always-
Carolina's going to fight hard against Clemson.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the two schools that do make sense to follow suit is Clemson and Florida State. They're natural fits, but at the same time, Sankey or whoever is in charge is going to have to convince South Carolina and Florida, hey, it's okay. We'll take care of you somehow.
I'll tell you
We can get you some more money.
Yeah,
and
somehow.
I have not been to Florida State. I've been to Clemson. I've been to a ball game down there. I've been to a ball game at North Carolina. I've been to one at Georgia Tech. Clemson is an SEC school.
Well,
The other ones
they are.
aren't.
Well, when Jimbo Fisher was whining his way out of Florida State, one of his biggest whines and complaints was why he needed to be gone was that Florida State hadn't kept up facility-wise
Right.
with what it should have been. And I'm thinking, well, all those years of dominance with Bobby Bowden, all those contributors,
Where'd all that money go?
We didn't spend none on any facilities.
See, to me, I don't want Florida State in the SEC. It doesn't attract me at all. You know who I'd like to see in the SEC? Because they fit. Give me Miami. You put the U in the SEC, you give them that recruiting power of being an SEC school, you go in there on a Saturday afternoon and you got Miami and Florida at either of those two schools, and Miami's sidelines is lined with the likes of Michael Irvin and Cortez Kennedy and all the alumni who come back to the program every time they start winning again.
Yeah, when they win 6 games.
That is an SEC school. They have the championships to boast. They have the fan base to boast. They would fit well in the SEC, and it would be beneficial to the school and to the conference.
Well, I don't think Florida would be happy with either one of them. But
no.
Would they be less happy with Miami getting in than Florida State?
Yeah.
Maybe. Because of proximity.
So let me ask you, because you just brought it up, I think it's a great topic. You say Miami. If you had to pick one school that's not currently in the SEC or not coming to the SEC to put in the conference, who would you be? I have
it's
a
Clemson.
Yeah,
I mean Clemson. You know,
I saved that one for you. I knew you were going to say that.
And well, you know, I mean, it is Clemson, and you know, Florida State's had a hard time finding its way for a while now. You know, I think Jimbo Fisher rode that about as far as it could be ridden, and then he got out of there, and it's been on its belly ever since for the most part. But I do think it's fixable. I mean, they sit where Auburn, Georgia, Alabama, and LSU run around getting ball players.
Yeah,
that's their ball players. They just got to keep them in house. Clemson's the most natural fit.
Obviously,
Scott,
obviously.
But I don't see why Clemson would want to be in there just anytime soon, because just like Bobby Bowden was having his way in that conference.
Yeah.
Why do we need any of y'all?
I'll tell you who mine would be, and I figured you were going to say Clemson, so I was trying to think of somebody else, but I've got my pick, just based on the atmosphere and the fact that they're pretty competitive in everything. I think Virginia Tech would be a heck of a choice.
Well, Virginia Tech would be a good choice.
They're not that far away from Knoxville.
Not that far away.
You put you in another state, get you another market, right up.
And you probably wouldn't have that. You'd probably have them waving their banner to do it.
Oh,
there's some people resisting
Virginia
Clemson.
Tech would be the SEC.
I don't think there's many schools out there that if they got the opportunity to come in wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
I mean, I mean, all three schools that we named right there.
I was thinking Louisville, but I think I'd have Virginia Tech.
Yeah, well, I agree with you. If you're Dabo and you're sitting over there dominating a conference, you need to jump into the SEC.
The problem
he's going to say, I'm gonna get a chance to beat you in the championship game if I can stay over here long enough.
The problem that Dabo is always going to face is, what is the rest of the conference going to look like? Because if I go in there year in and year out and the conference is crap, and I go undefeated and blow everybody else by
that's what he has to do.
That's what he has, you know. But I go in there and I blow everybody out by 80 points. I've not been tested whatsoever, and then the first time I come up against somebody in any kind of a test game is in a national semifinal game, and then God knows who I'm getting. More than likely, I'm getting Georgia or Bama
But a couple of those teams, and one of them won a championship, right? He's got one.
Yes, he's got a championship.
He's got two.
He had two. He had Bama, Georgia like ball players. I don't know if he can keep repeating that, but he had them at that moment.
But that was also in a stretch.
He got a bunch of them out of Georgia.
But you also were going through a stretch where Kirby had made the change to Georgia. Georgia was in flux, and Alabama had those couple of little down years. And then when both of those two programs got right back up, look what happened at the first of the year last year.
Well, I won't say that that's not part of the equation of taking advantage of neighboring schools.
You take advantage of your situation.
You know, South Carolina being down. I mean, so he's staking the state out for the most part. And Tennessee used to like to sneak down there and get a good ball player or two. But you know, when Clemson having its way, now they're coming up here and getting Tennessee.
But South Carolina, all of a sudden, at the end of the year, started winning some ball games and playing some people close. Now they got Spencer Rattler coming in, who's a named quarterback, and Clemson, had some difficulty had some problems at quarterback last year. Had some, they struggled for most of the year. Finally started to get going this year. So I want to see if that was just a anomaly for a year, or if Clemson's really kind of taken a step back?
I don't think they've taken a nosedive.
I don't think they have
anything.
either.
When I get the opportunity to listen to the Feinbaum show, you really do get an indoctrination of the SEC. From all different. But
I don't see how you stomach it,
Phyllis.
Well, but the way everybody talks over there from the South Carolina standpoint, they really are liking this coach.
Yeah,
they like him, and I think they're supporting him. And the one prior to him, they were done with him. Mm-hmm. But that is
Skip Holtz.
No, the one no.
Oh, the one before then.
Yeah, that's now on Georgia's staff.
Oh, Muschamp.
Muschamp's had 2 cracks at being a head football coach and failed
miserably at both.
He's that's not his persona.
Muschamp wears jorts. Muschamp wears jorts. Come on.
That's not his persona. I mean, he may know the heck out of one.
He went to Darlington, didn't he?
One side of the football.
I think so,
didn't he go to the Darlington school down Rome?
But again, I do listen to the Feinbaum show when I can get to, and there is a lot of drama in it at times. But what I do get out of it is that they are really inspired and love this guy over there right now. Now, whether he'll flip the switch and they'll win 10 ball games, we'll have to wait and see.
The funny thing about, you bring up Feinbaum, but I mean, every fan base has their show, or every state has their show. If you've ever been around Atlanta, and of course the show's changed now because one of the guys' contract wasn't renewed, but if you were around Atlanta and you listened to Buck and Kincaid at any given time, Buck and Kincaid is the Feinbaum show, just a little more tea as opposed to black coffee. It's a little bit more for a fine than Phyllis from Mulga, but you had, like...
You ever listen to 2 Live Stews when they were on?
Yep.
That was a good show.
There are some...
I used to listen to that at work.
I tell you the show that I miss, and I don't even know where it's at, and I'm sure they're back on somewhere, but I've not seen the Levitard show in so long that, I don't even know... What are they working out a non-compete or something? Because I've not heard anything.
In my wife's car in Sirius Radio, I found them.
Oh, you did?
Weeks ago.
Nice. Okay.
Same time slot. In the
same bunch of goobers, or they changed it up, or
thing.
What channel? Because I have Sirius, but I don't have like the extended.
You're gonna have to go home and find it for us so we know, because I like to listen to the Levitard show.
Well, and it's the first time I'd heard them. In a long time. And when I was dialing,
you don't get the show.
I was dialing it up. I was trying to find them if they were out there, and I did find them.
Oh, okay.
I still enjoy. I mean, if we're throwing the votes of confidence out there when it comes to that stuff. I am, and I always am going to be a Dan Patrick guy. I will be a Dan Patrick guy until the day he shuffles himself off this mortal coil. I just feel like he is still to this day one of the most even keel sports guys out there, because the thing about Dan is he's not in it for the crazy. He doesn't throw the soundbite out there. He's always about finding the story. And some of his interviews, I mean, I was watching that interview, last year. We talked about it on the show. The one where Scottie Pippen just flipped out and lost his mind in that one interview. I was watching it live. And I'll tell y'all know me long enough. Scott knows this about me for sure. I get secondhand embarrassment really bad. Like if it's really cringeworthy, I mean, I'm like, I get drawn up, and I mean, I can't even listen to it.
Yeah.
I couldn't stop watching that, but at the same time, I'm like pillow in front of my face, like watching it like this. It was just bad. And Dan, manages to coax him all the way through it. And it was just like
that's a master interviewer right there.
Oh. The Michael Jordan stuff.
That was they were talking about Last Dance. And they just kept prodding. And I mean, Dan was just letting Scotty take him where he thought he was taking him. And hell, by the time it was over with, Scottie Pippen calls Phil Jackson a racist, and I mean, then it was on. It was like, now it's a party.
Well, I mean, here we go. I don't know if y'all have caught this on HBO, and I don't know that it's got any real true accuracy of the Showtime Lakers. Have you seen that on HBO?
Oh yeah.
And
I saw about 20 minutes of it in a hotel room a couple weeks ago.
Jerry West is upset of his portrayal.
Yeah, I've heard he doesn't like his portrayal at all.
And I don't know how accurate they are on any of it, but I don't know that was their intent either. there's a degree of
they're making a show. Man.
There's
supposed to be. There's an entertainment.
People interested for entertainment, whether it was accurate or not. And when I saw the way they were playing out Jerry West, I thought, I doubt whether that was really him. And of course the Kareem and Johnson thing, if you watch it, I've seen it more than once. Johnson came in almost being disliked by everybody on the team.
Yeah.
And whether that's true or not, I don't know that to be factual or not. We know that he was the love of the team when it was over.
Well, let me give you the
and Rich Eisen. I'll throw Rich Eisen out there. Yeah. Because he comes on after Dan on the radio.
Let me give you the hidden gem that if you hadn't watched it yet, since you got HBO Max and you've watched the Showtime show, if you hadn't had a chance to watch it yet, the show that you need to watch is The Righteous Gemstones.
Oh, I've seen parts of that.
That is, Scott, you would love it.
Yeah, I have seen that.
Think Eastbound and Down.
I think we've got HBO Max now with our internet package, but we haven't hooked it up yet.
Do you remember Vice Principals?
I remember the show.
Okay, well, basically,
I did watch all Eastbound and Down.
The Righteous Gemstones is like Vice Principals meets the Righteous, or meets Eastbound and Down. I mean, Walton Goggins is fabulous in it. Danny McBride is, Danny McBride, I don't care what he's in. He's funny in everything I've ever seen him in.
Yeah.
And it's about a family.
John
Goodman is the patriarch of the family. It's about a television. It's basically a television evangelist family.
Okay, yeah.
And the money that flows through through it.
That show is
I have to look up that
phenomenal piece of television right there.
It would be interesting to hear somebody that's that they're portraying out there in real life to say anything about.
I'm telling you.
The accuracy of anything.
I tell you what, I saw.
But ultimately, it's about entertainment, and whether that steps on toes, and just like Jerry West is not happy with his. They're not just trying to make the show for Jerry West,
right?
They're trying to get everybody.
But at the same time, if you're making a show that's supposed to be a halfway factual,
to be accurate
documentary about real people.
You're going to use
their real names.
You fudge it a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, you better not take too many creative liberties.
I'd be interested to know how Magic feels about his portrayal, and Kareem in that thing, and Pat Riley, and
have they got to the Magic Hour part yet?
All right, so we got about 6 minutes left on the show till we end at 8:30. So I wanted to throw.
And we haven't forgotten about the presidential football team.
No. The presidential football team thing is in the works. I have 3 panelists at work, all with history backgrounds. Scott has already made his list.
I went home that night and went through them all.
I'm in the process of making my list. We're going to bring these guys on. They're going to talk. Trust me, you're going to dig it.
And let me just say this. I won't give the president's name away, but there was a president. Most of us are not smart enough to go back in time and know which one it is, who was 5'9",
5'4". 100 pounds.
5'4", 100. Well,
no,
I'll give that away. I'll give that away.
340.
My team is running a 3-4 defense based around a nose guard.
William
Howard Taft, who actually got stuck in a bathtub.
No, actually, that has been. It has been. But that was the. I will say
now,
this.
He was the first president to throw a baseball at the World Series.
Yes, he was that. And I will say
5'10", 340. He's my Ted Washington. I'm putting him in the middle of the line. He's going to take up 2 or 3 offensive linemen.
There is a picture, and you'll go home and look this up because I know you too well. There is a picture of the men who installed his bathtub in the White House.
I've seen it.
Like 5 dudes looking up over the side of this bathtub is how big this man was.
It's a swimming pool.
All right, so one last thing before we get off here, and it's been a couple of weeks now. We didn't touch on it at all, but it's too funny for us not to at least talk about it just a little bit. So I'm going to ask the question this way. Okay. Chris Rock was the man on stage. But let's say The Rock was the man on stage and made the same joke that Chris Rock made. Now, what do you think the odds are that Will Smith jumps his butt up, walks up there, and slaps The Rock across the face?
Well, they would be very slim, as we would be giving odds at the Kentucky Derby would be what, one in 1,000. I don't think he'd go up there and have anything to say about it. And again, that story's still kind of creeping around out there. People still giving their input now. I heard Chris Rock's mother put her say in it the other day. It's amazing that Chris Rock held his composure like that.
Well, there's a picture that I've saw circulate around where you can see him where as he's been hit, he's bent down, and if you look down at his right hand is balled into a fist.
Yeah.
Like he was going to come back up swinging, and I think the brain kicked in at that point and was like, okay, let's don't make a bad situation 10 times worse.
That thing would have been off the air just like that.
Oh, it would have.
We'd have never known.
It would have been the only thing worth watching in the Oscars in years.
Well, one of the things I was going to say a minute ago about the Oscars, and that was, you were talking about the televangelist question. Well, Jessica Chastain won the Best Female Actress for the Tammy Faye movie, The Eyes of Tammy Faye. Mm-hmm. I've read some stuff about it. I haven't seen the movie yet. I've had a couple friends that have and told me that it was absolutely phenomenal, because most people don't realize how much good, even though she went through all the embarrassment that she went through with Jim and all his, sex scandals and all that, behind the scenes, Tammy Faye did more for the LGBT community that people never knew, because obviously with her being a part of the PTL religion and everything, she didn't really make that known. But the stuff I've read, she was an absolutely phenomenal human being, and they say that Jessica Chastain just absolutely knocked her out of the park. So I'd be interested to see that aspect of it. But Rob makes a good point there. I'd love to know just one day what a place like that, one of those like Osteen or somebody like that has the big phone bank and all that. You just be curious to know what kind of money flows through that place on a day.
Yeah. A lot.
I mean, and nothing against them at all. I mean, that's, I'd just be curious.
But I've seen that show.
Righteous Gemstones.
I've seen that show, and I stumbled into it. I didn't know anything about it. I just stumbled into it.
This reminds me of Fletch too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Claude Henry Smoot. There's some television is coming back. It's coming back slow, but scripted television is making its way back. Reality TV is slowly being kind of cast aside a little bit. Scripted stuff is coming back, and it's really, really good.
Got to ask you about this too, because the announcement was made last week. Forbidden Door.
Oh, it's going to be incredible.
AEW and New Japan and one pay-per-view.
I mean, it's going to be when you actually, y'all keep talking, because I'm going to swap our camera battery out real quick just to be safe so that we don't.
Well, one of the rumors in the WWE that I hope it's just a rumor, and I hope they don't let that play out, because I just don't. I'd lose some. All the people that Roman Reigns has been able to defeat and keep that title, if they give that to Cody Rhodes, and I think there's going to be a push, and I'm already hearing it coming back, and that may have been some of the talk coming back, but that to me is that to me is undeserving. Cody Rhodes is never been what a lot of those guys that Reigns was putting down. For them to hand that over to Cody Rhodes. Now we know that in time they're going to give it to somebody.
Yeah,
they're going to give it to somebody. I don't know who they're going to give it to.
But I'll say this: I'd much rather see that belt on Cody Rhodes than I would Bill Goldberg again.
Well, that one's not even.
But that was worked in his contract.
That makes I know, but that's silly. That he would get the opportunity.
Okay, so
I wouldn't mind seeing it.
Back to the
honestly.
Okay, so back to the Forbidden Door.
He ain't good enough. He shouldn't get it.
They've not announced any matches yet. But let's say you got your dream card and you can put any matches out of that together. Where do you begin? The American faction of the Bullet Club against the Japanese faction of the Bullet Club? I mean, do you, because they go back and forth, do you get, and I mean, a lot of Americans have never seen it, but you want to see a hell of a match, you put the Gorillas of Destiny in there representing New Japan and put them against the Young Bucks and let those four just dance.
I'd rather see them against FTR.
Oh, that'd be.
And tonight, and it may have already started.
They're wrestling each other.
They're wrestling each other tonight, which ought to be.
Give me
fun.
Okada and Daniel Bryan.
Yeah.
Or Bryan Danielson. Give me, that right there. That'd be worth the whole show. Or give me Okada and CM Punk, Okada Hangman Page. Give me Okada. Bring back Kenny Omega. Come back.
He's got to be close to being back.
You do that,
and I think they're saving him. I think they're saving him for Forbidden Door.
Jericho,
and I think he's going to
somebody.
show up, and I think he may turn on AEW.
Will Ospreay against anybody on the roster, you're going to get a good match. What's his name? Kota Ibushi against anybody on the roster, and you're going to get a phenomenal match. Most American wrestling fans don't know the New Japan guys, but after this pay-per-view, you're going to be sitting there going, holy crap, where can I watch this
Roku,
New Japan?
Roku channel has got New Japan on it, and I've been watching it the last few weeks.
I've been watching New Japan now going on 12 years. Going all the way back to what Vice Television, would play it late at night sometimes on Fridays and Saturdays at like 1 o'clock in the morning, and you'd get to see.
What was the need to buy Ring of Honor? What was the need there?
Well, I think to protect that nameplate and those belts because of the history that Ring of Honor has. Because if you go back and look at Ring of Honor's history, former world champions range everybody from Bryan Danielson to CM Punk to Seth Rollins to Cody Rhodes.
Just didn't want to see it.
You just didn't want to see it go the wayside the way a lot of places did. You look at, the whole thing with, they let Samoa Joe, a couple weeks ago, Samoa Joe wins the Ring of Honor World Television Championship. Well, the casual fan's going to watch that and go, I don't care about that. Well, an old school Ring of Honor head is going to be like, oh my God, that's the one belt that Joe had never won. Mm-hmm. And it opens you up to be able to do other things. If you own Ring of Honor and you put it, say, on a streaming service to where you're not governed by the same FCC rules that you are on a television station, don't be surprised to see somebody like the Briscoes come in there on a regular basis. The saddest thing in the world is the fact that people are still holding a tweet that Jay Briscoe put out almost 10, 12 years ago that he apologized for and has apologized for over and over and over. I guess we forget that people can change, and we can kind of forgive someone for their misgivings. The Briscoes against FTR on pay-per-view, the Briscoes against Gorillas of Destiny, the Briscoes against Gallows and Anderson, the Briscoes against the Young Bucks. There are so many limitless combinations of tag matches you could have, bringing them into AEW or into the Ring of Honor aspect of it. Plus, you get like Dalton Castle and you get Gresham. You give guys like Jay Lethal and some of these guys that you brought over out of Ring of Honor, you give them a place to where if there's not a whole lot going on the AEW roster, you can still put on quality programming. It's just, it gives them, to me, what it gives Tony Khan and AEW is having Ring of Honor gives them their NXT.
Yeah.
So they've got that other, they already have Dark, but they've got this other thing now that they can operate as a completely separate company. You can throw Invasion back and forth headlines if you wanted to, but at this point, AEW, as far as they're concerned, there's no such thing as a Forbidden Door anymore.
No.
They do stuff with Impact. Now they're going to do stuff with New Japan. They were already doing stuff with Ring of Honor before it happened.
I've been trying to think of a match I'd like to see, and I think I've come up with one.
Yeah.
Blackpool.
Yeah. The Blackpool Combat Club.
Combat Club. Thank you. I couldn't think of the name. But just Danielson, not Yuta.
Yeah.
But Danielson and Moxley.
Yeah.
Against the Golden Lovers.
Ooh. If Kenny turns on AEW and that'd be a good one.
Bushi and Omega.
Hey, let me throw one thing out here real quick, and I don't know how many people pay enough attention to this kind of stuff to even understand when I start talking about this, but I saw some footage the other day that was really cool, and it made me respect Brock Lesnar even more than I already do respect Brock Lesnar. I can't stand his character. I like the newer character with no Paul Heyman, where he's kind of out there having a good time and acting a fool and wearing his cowboy hat, and stuff like that. That Brock is funny. I want to see him come out in friggin' Liberty overalls riding his tractor or something. I want him to be Farmer Brock, which is his real personality. Show me stuff like that. But let me talk about this for a second. How safe that dude is in the ring and how conscious he is of the people around him. There is footage has came out from that last match that he wrestled against Roman Reigns, and it shows 3 or 4 times where Reigns took pretty hard falls, and you can see Brock's hand underneath the back of Roman Reigns' neck, and he's tickling the back of his neck with his fingers to make sure that he's okay. It's kind of one of those universal signs as wrestlers, hey, you okay? And they show him 3 or 4 times throughout the match. Are you still with me? Are you all right? And I'm like, that's a veteran.
Yeah.
Just being out there and making sure he's taking care. And that guy's probably, as much as people don't want to admit it because people love to hate him, he's probably the safest guy there is out there.
Well, he probably is. And I know you saw this when it happened when Big E took that throw that didn't quite finish, and he landed
that was nasty.
so horribly on his neck, and I'm sure he's going to be told when he's fortunately he's not paralyzed, but I'm sure he's going to be told not to venture back into wrestling.
Yeah.
But as we see that after a decade or so, something might get better, and we venture back into it. And Stone Cold left the sport for that, and
but then
Edge.
he came back at WrestleMania. But you're talking about Edge, you're talking about Bryan Danielson. There's so many people that's had neck injuries, neck surgeries.
Well, Bryan Danielson was back in less than 3 years.
Yeah.
I mean, Edge was out for a while. But, that's wrestling, though. How many of us thought back in the late 90s and early 2000s, how many of us ever thought that we would see Shawn Michaels walk back through the curtain and wrestle in WWE again after he left the first time because of injuries?
Mm-hmm.
As many times as he
gets in your blood. It gets in your blood.
It does.
You can't.
There's footage right now of Ric Flair taking bumps with Jay Lethal in the ring about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I saw that.
And Charlotte comment on it, Dad, WTF. I'm like, if it's all it'd be hard to give that up. It's like anything that anybody loves. When you have something taken away from you, you always are going to long for that something.
And here's the other flip side of it. And unless Big E can find another way to make a nice living, he's going to find his way, try to get back in that ring again.
Yeah.
If possible. Now, maybe for his sake, he'll get in movies or something and not miss it.
Well, remember,
I think they'd like to have him as a trainer. With WWE, I could see him doing that.
That'd be such a waste, though. He's such a big personality. If nothing else, you bring that guy out there in the Rick Rude type role. You bring him out there as the manager that occasionally throws an elbow on somebody or something, or one bump every few weeks or something.
Happy with that? This is the question.
Well, but on the flip side of it,
paycheck's big enough, he'd be happy.
Well, and on the flip side of it is, I'm sure the doctor's going to tell him that you don't need to be back in that ring, and it's probably what they're saying right now. Now, 5 years from now, or 3 years from now, or whatever, they may give him permission to. Oh well, but I remember the throw, and I can't say who's at fault. I can't say that the guy. It's a hard throw to get 280 pounds all the way over.
It's a hard throw to throw if the guy's 200 pounds.
Yes, and that's what he was trying to do, and it just didn't quite by another 3 or 4 inches. Clear.
Maybe he was sweaty. Maybe he just didn't get a good grip or whatever. But yeah, every time, and
it's hard to say whether it was really that guy's fault.
And I still take issue with people on Facebook. Well, it's all fake. No, the hell it is.
No, it's
scripted.
It's scripted.
Yes. Do they pull some punches from time to time? Yes. Do they do moves to try to keep each other safe? Yes. But you can't look at that.
Does it go off script every now and then and somebody gets the hell beat out of them?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But you can't tell me everything in that ring is absolutely fake, because I know the truth. I know people.
Well, did you not hear? Did you hear? It was who was it that was one of the celebrities that participated at WrestleMania was quoted talking about. I think it was Logan Paul, because they asked him about, they were making, I guess on one of his podcasts or something, somebody came on his podcast and was making fun of him for being a part of WrestleMania, talking about it's fake and blah blah blah, and he was like, "There ain't nothing fake about it." He's like, "You know how you think that ring is spring loaded?" He's like, "It's not." He's like, "It's plywood, and you're falling on plywood." He's like, "We're 2 weeks out from that show," and he goes, "My body still hurts," and he's like, "And those guys do this day in and day out,
300
nightly."
times a year.
I'm 58 years old, so I know I've been watching wrestling for 50 years at least. And the difference in today's times and those times is the finishing holds that don't finish the deal. In those days, if you got hit with a pile driver, not only are you not kicking out a three,
They banned Paul Orndorff from doing it. It was too dangerous.
You won't
It was
see
outlawed in 47 states.
Now you kick out of the pile driver, the sleeper hold. Who got out of the sleeper hold in those days?
The
Nobody.
DDT. When Jake Roberts brought the DDT out there, that was the baddest move there was.
And besides Orton throwing RKOs that don't get kicked out of, but before his career ends, they'll be kicking out of those too. But all the finishing holds of yesteryears are not finishing holds.
No, they're just spot. And it's
Billy
funny that
Jack Haynes with the full Nelson.
Oh my God, I didn't even think about the full. It's funny that you say that.
The Iron Claw.
Flair's figure four was a finishing.
The Undertaker was just inducted. Obviously, this past WrestleMania, the Undertaker was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. Well, afterwards, a lot of the wrestlers and stuff, obviously on all the shows and stuff, have been telling stories about him and what a professional that he was and the way he would sell anything for anybody and how he was just, the safest worker and the whole thing. Well, Bubba Ray Dudley was on Busted Open Radio and was talking about the Undertaker and how much respect that the Dudleys had for him. And one of the main reasons was because at the height of the Dudleys' popularity and in their biggest run in WWE, nobody kicked out of the 3D, their finishing hold. Well, they were going to wrestle the Undertaker and Kane, and they had lined it all out, and they were like, we're going to throw the 3D, you'll kick out of it. And Undertaker was like, nope, ain't doing it. And they're like, but you're the Undertaker. And he's like, but that's your finishing hold. He's like, I'm not kicking out of your finishing hold. You put me in the 3D, and I'm going down for the 3 count. I'm not kicking out of it. And they said he was adamant about he would not take their finisher and get up.
Yeah.
He was going to take it and go down because he respected the business that much. That was your finishing hold. It's supposed to finish. And look at it now. How many damn spears and all did Roman throw on Brock a couple of years ago at WrestleMania?
Oh, yeah.
It finally took, 6 or 7 spears and 3 or 4 Superman punches. And, I mean...
Bring back the abdominal stretch.
The abdominal stretch was a finishing hold in this
or
day.
the airplane spin.
the
airplane spin was a hold back in the day.
How many matches did you see with?
I seen the sunset flip get you the belt.
Oh,
schoolboy roll.
How many matches did you see with Ric Flair and somebody, and Ric Flair spend most of the match walking them around that ring in a side headlock?
Yeah.
Locking it in, and then he'd hold them and then, punch them or whatever, grind it down, I mean, the stuff like that, those old Horseman matches with Ole and Arn, where Arn and Tully, where they just beat somebody to death, but all they were really doing was just like putting somebody in an arm bar and jumping off the top rope and smacking them in the forearm.
You were talking about groups a minute ago, and you were throwing out a bunch of different names and what do they call that, Scott?
Factions.
And there's been a lot of good ones from DX and all that. But gosh, can you think of anybody that you would crown over the Four Horsemen?
No.
As a faction?
Absolutely not.
There's not one, is there?
No.
They've
had some stinky members over time, but I mean, there's nobody.
But League of Nations.
But
that one's.
But to call it the Four Horsemen.
What was the one with 3MB?
Well, okay, if that
3 count.
If Four Horsemen is number one, and I tend to agree with. Who would you give number 2 to?
The NWO.
Yeah.
DX or
NWO, followed by DX.
NWO until they got 78 members.
Yeah, I'm saying the original
Hall,
Nash,
outsiders.
Hogan,
Yeah.
that threesome for that first year or
Yeah.
so, DX is always going to be pretty high on that list. At one time, when the Undertaker had that faction,
The Acolytes.
with the Acolytes, with the
Ministry.
Viscera, the Ministry, before they brought out McMahon as the higher power or whatever. The beginnings of that faction had great potential. So did the Nation of Domination.
I was about to bring them up.
And I think the biggest miss in the last 10 or 12 years is the way that WWE handled the Hurt Business.
Yeah.
If you would have taken that faction just as it was, and all it was missing was one thing, you bring Keith Lee up from NXT, you turn him heel, you make him the champ, and Bobby Lashley is the Intercontinental champ, and kind of, him and MVP both act as the molds for him.
Yeah.
You leave Sheldon and Cedric as the tag team champs. You could have
had something for
You
a while.
could have had something
Yeah,
for a
good
while.
one.
You could have put all kinds of groups together to try to go after them, but I think they really, really missed the boat on that one.
I think they got very impatient with it.
Yeah.
It didn't go long.
Yeah.
Well, they get impatient with everything. That's the problem. And a lot of that, too, was that faction came along in the middle of a pandemic when a lot of it, what you were watching was the video fans up there in the crowd and stuff, so you didn't have the live action. There have been some really good ones, but, all right, let's go on the opposite side. What's the worst ones you remember?
League of Nations.
League of Nations pretty bad. What was the one in
3 count?
3 count, 3MB? The one in WCW where
Now, I will say this.
General Rection and Corporal Chaos and GI Bro and those the Misfits.
Yeah, I was in Florida
Or
Championship.
the Oddities. The Oddities. That's who I'm thinking
The
of.
Oddities, yes.
The Oddities with the Insane Clown Posse and the big dude. I can't remember what his name was, but yeah.
Reese.
Yeah.
But there seems
Because
to be...
he was part of Raven. They became
At one
part
time,
of Raven's flock.
Raven's
Yeah.
flock.
But we've been saying this since AEW come back, that they almost came back with
man.
idea in mind that we would put all those factions in place. Because I almost thought they had too many, as opposed to what.
Well, they cut back.
Right to censor wasn't that great. But I'll tell you who I thought had potential, and they were just but people hated them so bad. I thought they had potential. The Spirit Squad.
Oh yeah.
Could have been really something.
Yeah.
Could have really been something.
Oh, I think the Nexus.
Oh yeah.
To me, the Nexus was a phenomenal faction.
And they let that run for a while.
They did.
They let that one run for a while, and they were a dominant group there for a long time.
My God, look who was in that group.
Yeah, they were a dominant group there for a
Going
long
back
time.
to what we were talking about earlier, I wanted to bring this point. Back in the day, you saw the arm bars and the headlocks because climbing the top rope is illegal.
Yeah. Well, that's true.
And then once that rule kind of went to the wayside, well, you can climb top rope. Well, now everybody wants to do these high spots and flip and do all these crazy maneuvers off the top rope, and it's kind
which led to injuries.
Well,
it has in shorter careers.
Who is it? I think it's Steve. I think it's Stone Cold that calls them spot monkeys.
Yeah,
because it's all about trying to get as many spots in as short amount of time as possible, and
they're good. Don't get me wrong,
right?
But when you're doing them over and over and over and over and over,
it loses its potential. Well, and that gets back to the whole thing of, if you watch AEW on a given week, you're going to see guys wrestle each other that have never wrestled each other. You're going to see the guys like Moxley facing people like Deontay Wilder and all these young kids that are coming up trying to make a name for themselves. Whereas if I watch WWE, well, pretty much every Monday night I'm going to see AJ Styles wrestle either Edge or Damian Priest.
If they bring one person out over a 6-month period, that's a lot. Yeah. And AEW is bringing new guys
every
out
time you turn around, there's a new face that pops up.
Bubba Ray says it all the time on the show, is that styles make matches. You get a big guy that really can't move against a small guy, you can have a heck of a match. And AEW is able to do that because they're putting new people together, like you said, with different people that we haven't seen.
Nope. But they keep the superstars away from each other.
Yeah.
You get the big-time superstar matches on big shows or on pay-per-views. You don't get the superstar matchup week in and week out. They make you want to see those matches. It's the anticipation. It's the old Georgia Championship Wrestling, WCW Saturday Night. It's that aspect of, how long did we have to wait until MJF and CM Punk finally got in the ring together?
Do you feel like going back to the old days of Georgia Championship and do you feel like that they give enough quality time with a guy like Flair, and he was tremendous on the mic, but they let others do it, come out there and really rile up an audience? Do you think that they do that well enough? I don't know.
In AEW?
I don't know that they're handing anybody. And the one that's really is the what's his name that's been the heel from the beginning? MJF. He's reminding me of.
He is Ric Flair circa 1985 as far as on the mic and his swagger.
Yeah.
His ability in the ring is not quite there yet, but I'm telling you right now, if I were the bookers in AEW, he'd probably be my champ right now. And I would probably have him, I would have him in some sort of Four Horsemen like legit, not this crap. They're, are they the Pinnacle, are they not, whatever.
Yeah.
I would have him in some sort of stable with a bunch of a-holes just as obnoxious and hateful as he is.
Well, that's what they're doing with the Jericho Appreciation Society, and I just wonder if they'll all turn on Jericho and join him.
And that's what I think. That's what Jericho's doing. I think Jericho's setting this up so that he can ride off into the sunset. But MJF to me is a future world champion, and he's a future long reigning world champion because he is that guy that his parents came to a show with a cardboard sign that said, "We're MJF's parents and we hate him too." And that is the sign they held up in the front row. If that's not heat, and he never breaks character. He was on Twitter the other day and just roasted some chick that shouted out to him and just roasted her.
I heard a story about something that he did at a wrestling convention show, and I'll tell you off the air.
Yeah,
but and the guy thought it was hilarious.
Yeah,
but
he is that guy.
The contract people need to put a package together for him because I'd hate for him to leave.
Oh,
I'd hate.
You know good and well that he's on WWE's radar big time right now because they know what that guy. You just imagine. Let's say, and I'd hate to see it happen like this, but you just imagine Cody finally does win the world championship. Let's say he wins the world championship at a Hell in a Cell pay-per-view or something like that. He's standing in the middle of the ring and he's celebrating, standing up on the ropes, holding that belt up, and MJF's music hits.
Oh.
Now you talk about a pop, that place would go through the roof.
Yeah.
I'd hate to see it.
I would too.
But you could. But if we can sit here and book it in our minds, it would be
something.
WWE would screw it up because they would immediately put them in the ring together the very next night on Raw and it'd be over with. But
have you caught Ezekiel yet?
Oh yeah,
Elias's new character
hysterical.
looks like Ultimate Warrior.
I'm not Elias. I'm Ezekiel.
Yeah, okay. Brother.
Yeah, I just we've said it a million times. AEW is just taking wrestling in a direction that is familiar to all the old school fans, and I have a lot of Scott and I both belong to a wrestling group on Facebook, and I get in there sometimes and I watch and I listen and I laugh because there's 2 or 3 guys in there that they are old school, die hard WWE. If the guy ain't 6'9" and weigh 320 pounds, and it ain't believable.
Yeah,
and you.
Well, and I know we need to wrap it up, but there's a character that's out there that needs to be gotten back into the fold, and that's Bray Wyatt. Because
absolutely.
What Stone Cold meant to when his music hit, and what the Undertaker's music meant when he hit. We see the phenomenon that takes place when his music hits.
You bring him back as,
And-
you've done him as the Fiend now.
I don't think the Fiend's his best character.
You bring that guy back as the Eater of Worlds. You
Let me-
bring that Fireflies music
But
back,
let
and
me
you
ask you
bring
a
him
question.
back
Let me
out
ask
with
you
that,
both a question.
that lantern.
Yeah, that's it. That's his character.
Do you want to see Bray Wyatt for the entrance, or do you actually want to see Bray Wyatt work in the ring?
Well, for me, it's the whole package.
The entrance to me is awesome, but he doesn't do anything
Oh, no,
for me
he's
in
not
the ring.
No, he's not a talented wrestler, but it's all the other stuff that goes along with him. When you have him as the leader of that faction, and you
Would
suspend.
you say the same thing about Hogan and Ultimate
Well,
Warrior?
What did Luthez?
Yeah, I mean,
what was it Luthez said about Hulk Hogan? As an entertainer, he's an 11.5, but as a wrestler, he's a 7. My mama could kick out of that leg drop, is what Luthez said.
well, yeah,
I mean,
but I'm looking at it now as a grizzled old wrestling watching veteran of 45 years or more now. I love the entrance, but you got to have something for me in the ring, and
Is he really that bad? Is he that bad?
well,
He's not that bad.
his
but
weight gain over the last few years and stuff kind of took
he
some of
just
that out of
doesn't
him.
do
and
anything.
He doesn't do anything spectacular.
For me to get excited about. I mean, when
You
I
think
was
that's
growing
what's
up
keeping
watching
him from
Hogan,
But you
going
got
up?
to play him. The thing with Wyatt is you have to play him the true heel, slow, methodical,
yes.
beat on you type of match.
Don't-
He don't need to be out there throwing spots.
No.
He needs to be out there throwing arm bars and hip tosses
Old
and
school-
snapmares
old
and
school,
reverse chin locks. He needs to be doing anything. I mean, old school
Dick
big
Slater.
guy wrestling. Yeah,
Dick Slater.
exactly. Andre the Giant, man, choking you with his singlet, doing anything he can to make you drag him around the ring and tire you out the way they would have in the past.
But here's
That's
the thing.
his match.
His name's on the card. Does that crowd show up in abundance to see him more so than if he wasn't on that card?
People dig him.
I think they show up because he's a name, and I think everybody likes that entrance, but they're not going to be able to do that entrance in AEW if he were to show up there, so they'd have to come up with something else. And
Why
then
would WWE not want him back?
Well, I think
Is he asking for $1 million more
I
and
think
they want
that's.
to
I think
give him?
potentially because none of his merchandise has been taken off their website, so I don't think that he's officially gone. There's
No.
been that's been up in the air now for going on 6 or 7 months. I mean, he ain't been in a ring now in over a year. I think is the last time he actually stepped
Yeah.
foot in a WWE ring. So I mean,
and I could see him just as a manager if you had the right faction to put him in there.
Yes, he's a front man. He's a front man in
his
anything
mic work alone.
Absolutely,
is,
Yeah.
I mean,
absolutely.
that's what I'm saying. I mean, for him,
I'd watch that. I don't
his
know,
character,
but I don't
his
care
character
to
was
see
as
him in the
good
ring.
as anybody's
It is.
character.
But he had, like I said, he's got to play that true heel role. You don't want him in that tweener where everybody's like, "Oh, this is great, I love him" or whatever. You want him to be
hate him.
that absolute. I mean, I want the Bray Wyatt sitting up on the stage, rocking in the rocking chair, singing "He's got the whole world in his hands." That's the
you
Bray
wanna hate
Wyatt.
him and fear him.
That's
at the
the Bray
same time.
Wyatt I
I
want.
want
Don't
not
That's
hate
right.
him,
don't give
fear
me
him.
the
Fear
later.
him
Yeah,
is what I
don't give
want.
me that later watered down version that they brought later on.
Well, I
I
didn't-
want that original version that's just scary
Yeah.
as hell.
Well,
That's
he
the
had
guy I
that
want.
character when he was playing football. They said
Yeah.
at Troy, he had that character.
That's the guy that they
He walked
need.
in and said, "This is what I want to do," and they said, "Okay, let's go with it." So,
That's good.
all right. Well, we have. You sure we can't go another hour? I mean,
Yeah.
we might as well. But it is 9:00. I know somebody has to get up and be at a golf tournament fairly early. Good luck.
Thank you.
And
We need
good
it.
and good luck to all the other teams that are going to be there. And then I know we got track meets and golf tournaments coming up, 3 or 4 in the next couple of days alone. So, and then Chattanooga will be following right up with their postseason stuff. So we'll be keeping an eye on all of that. And again, thanks to all of our sponsors. Thanks to everybody that's had a hand in putting this show together. Don't forget, we're now on YouTube and Twitter and Facebook Live and
And
hopefully
again, we can never say enough about our sponsors. Some good folks.
HBO Max. Not yet, but we're working on it.
Oh, HBO Max. Okay.
Yeah, we'll see. We've mentioned them enough times. They ought to give us a sponsorship tonight. Anyway, for Scott and for Rob and for Rusty, you've been watching Scenic City Sports Tonight. You guys have a fantastic rest of the week.
The views and opinions expressed on this show are those of its host and owners and in no way represent the views of the people, institutions, or organizations that Scenic City Sports is involved with in a professional or personal capacity. Thanks for watching and enjoy the show.
Well, the days are short and the nights are long. A room slowly fills with song. All I need is one reminder. Parkway, blue blinded. Well, I begged and cheated and I borrowed for my life upon the road. I'm still looking for some gold at the end of my rainbow. Yes, and someday I will find her on a parkway, blue blinder. On a parkway, blue blinder. Someday I will find her. Yes, and someday I will find her on a parkway, blue blinder. On a parkway, blue blinder. On a parkway. On the parkway, on an autumn day. Yes, and leaves fall like confetti in a New York parade. On the parkway, on an autumn day. Yes, and leaves fall like confetti in a New York parade. In a strange way, I know I care. You and me in truth or dare. So into my love's eyes I stare. Perfect circles in a square. Yes, and some